Good afternoon, morning, evening, or night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this. This is a blab. Haven't done one
Is
of
it a
these.
blab?
Yeah,
I'll give it some clickbaity name.
yeah. Something to do with booties and Spider-Man.
Is Spider-Man PS4 really as good as they say?
But that is the question of the day.
That is the subject of this.
I am your host, Jamie. Of Jar
You
Media.
got your boy Alex over
Got
here.
your boy Alex, my brother from the same mother.
God damn,
That's who you is.
that's impressive.
And we are talking, as you've already mentioned, about Spider-Man PS4, who you and I have both played.
We both played, we both finished.
As a general opinion,
Yeah, should we set it so first few minutes, non-spoiler, everything beyond that, we say whatever we want.
well, there are a few things we can go through that aren't spoilery,
Okay.
such as gameplay, presentation,
Right.
those sort of subjects. It's just the story that we'll probably want to talk about.
Yeah.
But is this game good, bad, or ugly?
Its highs are very high and its lows are very low, but overall the package is very solid and it's an extremely good representation of Spider-Man and a very good superhero game.
Would you say it makes you feel like Spider-Man?
We were joking about this the other day.
Yeah.
It's like every game like this, it's like, God, it just makes you feel like Spider-Man. All the critics out there saying the same shit. Like, Arkham City, it makes you feel like Batman like no other game. Spider-Man PS4 just makes you feel like Spider-Man.
But the thing is, it really does.
Yeah, it does.
The way the gameplay is designed, apart from the stealth stuff, in my opinion, which doesn't
We'll get to that, I'm sure, in a minute.
Yeah, but overall, this game has hooked me. Because
Yeah.
it wasn't since Bloodborne that I've because I don't own a PlayStation.
Yeah,
I've
you
just
played
played it
on
with
my
you. I've just wanted to come here and be antisocial and just play a video game. And that's something special. And on the record here, I was quite negative pre-release about
I'd say
this game.
out of everyone in Jar, and the whole fucking internet, it's just everyone.
Yeah.
Out of everyone on the whole internet, me and Jim were probably the most critical
Yeah.
of how this game looked, because that's one thing we can start off with. Is I think we're both quite disappointed by the marketing of this game.
Absolutely.
Specifically, the E3 content they chose to release spoils some great moments from the game.
Yeah, really great moments.
When that punch, the contextual kind of story punch is taken away, kind of makes it something that would be like, oh yeah, this is awesome. So it takes the punch away. And the same thing happened with Uncharted 4 as well. The best moment in that game was spoiled at E3.
That was, at least you could say that was a moment of gameplay. There's a cutscene that plays in the last third of the game.
Yeah.
That is... It's almost misadvertising because that isn't what the game is about.
No.
And I went in thinking, oh, it's about this because they showed this. So I assumed that was the start of the game, but it's not. That's the final chapter.
Yeah.
And it definitely took away the punch for me. Sony needs to sort out their marketing.
And it's very annoying because you're playing the game and you're just waiting for, okay, when's the bit from E3? When's the bit from E3? Oh, there it is. Now I can see new stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because it has to get to this point before anything else can happen before or after it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was annoying. But whatever, that's kind of detached from the actual game itself and the design of the game.
It isn't, because it does sort of take away from your enjoyment.
Yeah, yeah. But overall, it doesn't ruin the game. It's not like huge reveals. There are story things that were kept under wraps quite well, that I had no idea were going to be in the game, and subsequently are some of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But a good starting point, I reckon, for a game is to talk about the gameplay.
Okay.
So
yeah,
there's 3 aspects to the game. Like, much like the Arkham games, there's combat.
We're going to be talking about Arkham, all right?
Yeah. There's stealth, but this game has the traversal, which sure the Arkham games had, but
yeah. Well, it's set in an open world.
Yeah, it's a proper open world. It's a city that looks amazing and is so goddamn fun to just zoom around through a Spider-Man.
So out of those 3 gameplay elements, I think we're both in agreement. The traversal, the web slinging, everyone has said this 100 million times, so we don't even really need to linger on it for very long, is the best thing about the game. I think we're both fans of Insomniac's previous game, Sunset Overdrive.
Yeah.
And there are a lot
again, that was the best part of that game.
Yeah, traversal was very, very well designed in that game.
Yeah.
And they take the best elements of that and apply it to Spider-Man, and the way you're able to move is just instantly, the beginning of the game just launches you straight into traversal and gets you to learn it, and you didn't seem to have as much of a learning curve as I did with getting used to it.
No, I found that strange, because everyone was saying it does feel quite difficult at first, but for me it was just immediately
I think we'll get into what I actually think people are talking about with this learning curve thing in a sec, when we bring in like the other action gameplay and stealth and stuff, because I really kind of just want to go into like spoilers, because I want to talk about gameplay in relation to things that are happening. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I just want to say before we go into spoilers, I think a great thing about this game is the way the gameplay, the traversal, like combat and story, it's all linked. And the gameplay, the combat may not be the best, but you're motivated to do it because the world is so interesting. The character you're playing as, Spider-Man, obviously you want to play as him, and the story makes you want to keep going.
Yeah.
It pushes you forward. And that, not enough games do that.
No. It's very rare that the hook of the game is, I want to find out what's happening next. A lot of the time, especially with open world games, you're just playing it purely for the gameplay, purely for the collectibles, the side missions, just leveling up a character kind of thing. But the main draw to me was the story.
Yeah.
At first I was kind of like, the story's probably whatever. And I was more interested in just the idea of swinging around the city as the main appeal. But as it goes on, the story is really what kept me going, especially a certain aspect of it, which we'll get into, I guess. Now, should we just fucking do it? Let's just go in.
Yeah.
So before we jump in, I mean, you'd recommend the game, right? I'm sure. I mean, at this point,
everyone's already bought it.
Yeah, everyone's already bought it and played it.
But I mean,
even if you're on the fence,
I'm thinking this video for me, because I don't think I would have bought this game. Because
if not for me buying it, and
I wouldn't have played it ever if you.
Yeah.
But I want to say, if you are on the fence about it, get it. For sure.
Yeah. So, we'll be talking spoilers now. So, if you don't hear anything about that, go play it and come back. That was the main reason I bought the game, because I was going to sit back and wait for it to get a bit cheaper or whatever, but everyone was just being so positive about it. Everyone was talking about it on my podcast app. All of these spoiler casts for the game were popping up, and I was like, you know what, I just have to. Just finished my Destiny video. I want to play a video game I might actually enjoy. And I was really pleasantly surprised, mostly by the story, because that's the main draw for me for video games at this point, because I kind of over a lot of the certain aspects of it. Like you said, the open world and the side stuff hooked you, and watching you play it, you were playing it probably the way they designed it. Yeah. With just constant side missions and little things to do to distract you from the main course.
What I like about this one is that I don't want to do all these little things just to tick them off a checklist. It's because they're there. I'm in this part of the city. The game's fun. Why not?
Yeah. And you said part of it was there are these little side missions that pop up randomly. That are just little tiny
it's just like a
missions.
Little robbery.
Yeah,
in a shop.
And you said you were driven to do them because Spider-Man's character is that he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He stops bank heists. He saves people. Those are my favorite ones, where there's just been like a car crash and he's got to just save people. That was one thing that Arkham games didn't really have.
It's not really a Batman thing.
But I mean, I always appreciate when a superhero property makes the superhero like a true hero.
Yeah.
And they have those hero moments. So just the little touches. Like, it doesn't have to be saving the whole world, but just like saving that person that otherwise would be in trouble kind of stuff. So the main story of the game is you obviously follow Peter Parker. This is Peter who's been Spider-Man for 8+ years.
Yeah.
So he's a veteran. And there's a lot of story that you just kind of have to guess. Like characters like the Rhino, the Scorpion, Kingpin. All of these well-known characters are already established, and they already have their own history with Spider-Man. Some of which are teased at and expanded upon in the collectibles.
Which again is quite similar to Arkham.
Yeah, I would say
it's not by any means an origin story.
Yeah, but the real meat and potatoes of the story for me was the relationship with Dr. Octopus and or Otto Octavius, Otto Octaman and Peter. I liked how we've seen so many times in whether it be movies or whatever, mostly movies, because we've seen so many incarnations of Spider-Man now. He's always
lots of TV shows.
He's always either in school or a photographer as well. They still have the photography aspect in it because that is an integral part of his character, but I like the way they remix it. So he's a scientist, though. We're always going on about how smart he is, and it makes sense for him to be working for a character like Doc Ock before he is like a supervillain that he winds up being. To me, that was the biggest draw of the game, because early on they keep it a secret at first. So when you go to Doc Ock, you already know it was in knew it was in the game. I think
I didn't know he was like in the game, but
just as an actual character. But I praised the game, I think, yesterday when we were talking about it, for Spider-Man has to do a lot of work to make some of their villains interesting. As neither of us are that familiar with these characters' histories, but a lot of Spider-Man characters, villains in particular, their origin is just an experiment's gone wrong. That kind of, they're just bank robbers. There's not much to them. And I think originally I read through Doc Ock's kind of wiki of what his original motivations were, and it doesn't make him a fleshed out character. It doesn't make him interesting. He's just another one of those kinds of villains, and the only main draw to him is he looks cool, he's got the arms.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with that.
But exactly. But they actually make Doc Ock a fully fleshed out character, and I fucking love his motivations in the game. I think it's like such an obvious. That's so perfect. Like, you have him and Peter have this kind of almost father-son relationship, because that's lacking in Peter's life. So that's immediately like a link there. Peter completely idolizes him because of the science link, and he's so passionate about that subject.
Well, and they're both doing something that it's just like the kind of job Peter Parker would have. Yeah, like making limbs for people that have lost their limbs and stuff like that. Yeah,
and I like the whole. He's almost more into the science aspect than being Spider-Man. He does that out of the obligation and the responsibility aspect, but he's really passionate about the idea of saving everyone. What's the potential that this technology can save infinitely more people and impact way more people's lives than him punching thugs in the street ever could. I really like that aspect, and it really humanizes him and Doc Ock. And my biggest worry that with Doc becoming Dr. Octopus was that they were going to rush into it or have his motivations for it be weak.
The main worry for me was is it just going to be, because they established that thing just like in Spider-Man 2, there's
his neural interface or whatever,
and I thought it was just going to be, that goes wrong, and then the arms control him and make him crazy.
But there's way more to it than
it's layered, because there is an aspect of that, but what he actually feels is just exaggerated by that.
Exactly. That chip kind of enhances the way he feels. So I just think it's just such a good idea, his motivation being that he's got that sort of neurological disorder, so his body is dying, so he's so motivated to finish making this technology that can make his life worth living from his perspective, because he wants to be able to continue doing what he can with the use of some kind of body. So as soon as they introduce that element, it really like grounds him as quite a relatable, understandable character. And then the comic book mumbo jumbo of the neural interface going a bit wrong and everything is like the the MacGuffin to kind of fully send that character on his journey to becoming a villain. And they even like hide in little secrets. Like, I like the fact that at first you think, because Doc Ock catches Peter working on a suit, but we think he doesn't twig that he knows that Peter's Spider-Man. He thinks Peter just works for Spider-Man. Yeah. When in actuality, he's smart enough to know, oh, he's Spider-Man. But he keeps it to himself, and then it adds way more kind of like emotion to the final sequence when he reveals that, and it gives the character of Peter way more legroom to kind of express his feelings in that final sequence, which really is like I think it's the best part of the game for me, narratively.
That final sequence, gameplay, story just completely merge, and because you're on a skyscraper, like the most obvious place to have a final fight, but it looks incredible. It's such a Spider-Man-y type fight. Like, I remember, I just did a small thing, but it felt straight out of like Spider-Man 2, where he threw something at me, and I grabbed it with my webs and started spinning it to hit him with it, but he threw another one, and it hit me. Yeah. So that just feels like a movie.
And even though that part where you're sort of fighting on the side of the building, it's not mechanically deep in any way, but it's the payoff to those two characters, like arcs, their stories, and it has a real like punch in terms of just where those characters are at that point, and the cutscene after where he does like deactivate his arms, and he's just lying there. It's like a really good, poignant way to end that, and I love how like Peter has to do those typical hero choices where it's like, I mean, the Aunt May thing, they fucking killed Aunt May.
That fucking blew me away. The thing is, that's one aspect of the story I wish she was in it more. Because you don't really feel this relationship. You know there is one because it's Spider-Man, and everyone knows Spider-Man, but...
See, for that I'm okay with, in the same way I'm okay with a lot of implied storytelling like the Arkham games did, where we're so familiar with these characters just based on all the different incarnations. Like, we know what Aunt May's about based on the Marvel movies, the Andrew Garfield movies, the Tobey Maguire ones, the comics. She's just a really famous character. We know what she stands for. We know what she's all about.
We know how much she means to the character.
Yeah.
And
so they can skip some things.
They did the most incredible thing, though, with the little blue cure. And obviously, Spider-Man's thing is, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And how hard that can be. And nobody says that in the game.
There are lines similar to it. Doc Ock says one kind of similar. Yeah, I liked that in that final cutscene there with him.
But he shows it, having that responsibility.
That's great, like showing instead of telling, storytelling.
And how hard it can be on such... It's a big yet small scale. It's just one person's life over countless others.
Yeah, and as far as the story goes, I think that's its biggest strength. Is it's so true to the concept of what Spider-Man is, what he means, what he represents, everything he's driven to do. It just understands really well, and it makes him way more like an interesting character. You said yesterday that the story at points kind of reminded you of the way when we saw Spider-Man 2 in the cinema when that came out. How that makes you feel, a kind of nostalgia.
And he's just such a great character. Like, he tries his best, and it may be hard, but
he's just so relatable, man.
It's relatable, yet you can idolize him.
Yeah,
and you sort of get that tear in your eye when something small happens. And like,
so but that aspect of it is the strongest part to me, the Peter and Doc Ock stuff. I think all the other parts I have some more like nitpicky problems with.
Well, there's the notorious these are sort of intertwined with the story, the parts where you're playing as not Spider-Man.
I guess we have to talk about those.
Everyone's picked up on it, and they are fucking weak.
So we're talking about the sections where you're not playing as Spider-Man, you're forced to either play as Miles Morales, who's in the game, or Mary Jane, in sections where you have pretty much no offensive ability apart from one Mary Jane gets at the very end of the game.
But even that sequence is dog shit.
Yeah. When I said this game has lows, that's basically what I mean more than anything. I like the idea behind these sections.
I almost wish they were less engaging.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like the one towards the end of the game where you're Mary Jane, kind of going through the Norman's apartment.
Yeah,
I like that one when you're not doing the stealth shit.
Yeah, I would have been fine with that bit, but I'd already done a stealth bit to get there, and I knew there was more stealth to come before that part would end.
So it's just inherently frustrating because
I just wanted to get past it so I could start swinging around.
Yeah, and it's not like they're just inherently bad because you're not playing Spider-Man. It's that they're not developed. They're
the most obvious side thing as well. Like when you don't have gameplay that's solid, do a stealth bit because then
you don't have to worry about smart AI.
Yeah. Well, you should have to worry about smart AI with stealth, which they fucking don't by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, yeah, you can figure out how the AI work and then just sprint through it like in Outlast or something.
Yeah.
You just figure out how dumb they are. And some of the things you were doing when I was watching you play it was just like, what? They've got peripheral vision that goes like 10 centimeters that way and that way.
Yeah. Well, if you run past them and they see you, if you don't stay in front of their face for 20 seconds, they don't twig that anything's there.
Yeah, yeah. And when you were doing them, I was like, what they're doing and what they're discovering in the story could be summarized in about a sentence. Yeah. Usually, it's like,
well, they're always not always, but most of the time they're 15 minutes ago this happened.
Yeah.
And why not just tell them what happened?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it could just be really quick, brief. It just seems like filler in that respect. Like, the only one that really importantly impacts the story is the one at the very end.
Yeah.
With Norman.
That would have been fine if that was the only one as well.
Yeah. There are just too many of them. There are way too many of them.
There's too many of them. It's hard to look back on because now I'm, like, I've finished the game and I'm at the other side of it. It feels like a small percentage of the game, but while you're doing one of those sequences, it's like, is this ever going to end?
Yeah. And when I was watching you doing them, they felt shorter than I remember them being.
Right.
But there's still no excuse for them, really.
No. When the game shows so much quality in pretty much all of the rest of it.
It's why I think, it hurts the replayability most of all, but it's why I think all three of the Arkham games, because you have to draw the comparison. I think they are better games.
Each has better aspects.
Yeah, but I think overall as a video game, they are tighter, more focused. In the gameplay side, I think their stories have some problems that this game is a lot better at, but
there are a few things in Spider-Man that I wish they had. Wish, like in Arkham Knight, which is when they sort of went proper open world.
Yeah.
There are side quests, and I don't mean just like the ones that are in Spider-Man, where you go and talk to someone and they give you a loose context of what you're doing and why. I'd like story side missions.
Yeah.
With proper cutscenes. But at the same time, something that I wish Arkham had, that Spider-Man has, is that sort of the same thing. The side quests in Spider-Man are just nice, quick filler.
Spontaneity of it.
Yeah.
It's like, this makes sense where it is. You
can just do it.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to just, like a Mysterio side quest or something. Just something with someone, or even a C-list villain.
Yeah. We have to remember, we have to reel it back and remember this is Insomniac's first Spider-Man game.
And I know Arkham Asylum didn't have that. It's just that they started with an open world game.
It's just, the expectations are so high, and because of how structurally similar gameplay-wise it is with the Arkham games, you have to end up drawing those comparisons. And if we quickly go back to the story thing, I want to talk about that part where you're Miles, and it's kind of the end of Act 1, the big kind of downer moment.
Yeah.
Where Miles Morales' dad gets kind of blown up by Mr. Negative, and there's like this whole terrorist sequence.
Yeah.
Where you had the exact same reaction I did when I was just playing it by myself, where I out loud I was like, what the fuck? This is so dark compared to everything previous. And I'm still not sure if I really like it or not, because the game never goes to that kind of extreme violence and kind of depressing imagery again in the game. That's the lowest point in terms of that kind of stuff in the entire game. There are low points like with the characters and how that.
Yeah.
But it's different. That's still within the comic booky kind of Doc Ock and Peter fighting on a building is not a bunch of terrorists exploding innocent and gunning down innocent people in the street. I just found it to be kind of this weird tonal shift where everything before it is quite lighthearted, quite carefree. I just find it is so ridiculously violent. It's like something out of the Arkham games, which have a consistent, heavy tone.
There's anything even like that in the Arkham games. This is way darker.
I guess, yeah. They're more brutal and violent, though, is what I mean.
Yeah.
But they stay at a consistent level, where Spider-Man is like it's so true to that kind of carefree, inherently goofy Spider-Man style.
Yeah.
And I understand the decision to do that.
I feel like there's a way they...
Yeah, I don't think...
Sort of took it to 11 when it didn't have to go past the 5. What I thought was going to happen was Mr. Negative was going to try and like assassinate Norman with a sniper. And not what's his face, Miles' dad would jump in front.
See that would be more than enough, but then I guess they had the issue of trying to make some kind of gameplay around it.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but it's just like...
But the gameplay of that part sucks anyway, because you're just Miles dodging characters, so... Yeah, that part left something to be desired. I
think another part of it is, it's like... Look what happens when Spider-Man isn't doing his thing.
Yeah.
Sort of. So they could have Spider-Man have that conflict of, I should have done something. But... Yeah, I don't know.
What did you think of Mr. Negative?
I thought he was good.
He was surprising, because like when I saw him in the original trailers, I thought, whatever, don't care about this guy. But they make you like, they ground him enough, they give him enough motivation.
I like his design.
His design is really cool. His visual design is very cool. It's a shame his origin had to be experiment gone wrong, but I do like how it does tie in. It's not removed. It ties into the Ock.
I think that's where the experiment thing gone wrong works.
Yeah,
because Norman is the focus of everything. He's pretty much the cause.
Yeah.
To everything bad that happened.
Yeah,
and
I like that
in
aspect
a scientific
of it.
field.
Yeah.
So it's like fair enough.
Yeah, I more have an issue with that when it's characters like Scorpion.
Yeah.
Where it's his backstory as well, like these experiments, these technology gone wrong, kind of stuff. Where it's like, how many times can you pull that old trick?
Yeah.
I think even Rhino has it as well. It's like experiment technology gone wrong, trapped in his suit. Yeah. We can mention of course, the Sinister Six are in the game. That's how kind of Act 2 ends.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. With the thing, a trailer spoiled. They just show that whole cutscene.
Do they actually show that? Because I didn't know that was in the game.
Yeah, that prison bit. I don't think they show that Dr. Octopus is there. But they show like the whole...
I remember seeing the Electro bit from that, but...
Yeah, but then when that E3 part ends, it just shows that whole cutscene, I'm pretty sure. And I think they changed it so in the trailer it was Mr. Negative saying don't kill him. Whereas
I appreciate that at least.
Yeah, in the game it's Doc Ock.
So yeah, speaking of Norman, that's another character I'd actually forgotten about until you just mentioned him, that I'm really glad I've never really liked the idea of that character beyond goofy superhero, and he's another one. Like in the comics, he's like an experiment gone wrong thing.
Back to form, yeah.
But I really like that his motivation is around his affection for Harry, as opposed to the other way around. Because the whole time through the whole game, I was like, what is this Devil's Breath thing? Yeah. Why would he be developing that? And it does... I
thought Devil's Breath was going to be the juice that turns him into Green Goblin.
Yeah, so did I.
And I thought he was going to like come out on his flying saucer thing and be like,
yeah, I thought they were going to do that as well. Yeah, I'm really glad they
I'm sure they did that on purpose.
Yeah. Because it makes a character who's kind of an asshole for the whole game, and you don't like him.
And it's like, I completely understand why he's doing everything.
He's got that great scientific mind, and all he's trying to do is save his son. And that's obviously like a big tease for the next game.
Yes.
So hopefully...
This game is obviously getting a sequel.
Yeah. We were theorizing yesterday that the game, story-wise, most likely is hopefully going to focus on Norman and Harry and possibly Venom, because they tease this new interpretation of Venom, possibly. That's what it looks like to me, like the kind of
I wonder if they're going to merge Venom and Green Goblin into one.
It might be their way of trying to kind of MCU-wise the Green Goblin to make him less kind of silly, because that character is super silly. Like you can put the Vulture in a robot costume and the Rhino in a big mech suit and kind of bring it down a bit from that cornballness, but the Green Goblin, it's in his name. He's a particularly hard to do character, especially in this universe. I can see him in like, the cartoon and stuff working.
Well, and in like the original Spider-Man movie, it's just like completely stupid shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that could be an interesting way to go with that. And I'm actually like really curious about the story of where it goes and where the characters go. And of course, we haven't even mentioned Miles yet, who's another big player.
Yes.
Of course, by the end of the game,
he gets bitten by a spider.
Yeah. So I noticed in that final cutscene, he's kind of all smiley and happy about it. But I do hope they go for some kind of contrast, because to make two Spider-Men interesting, they have to have something majorly different about them. And my understanding is that Miles originally isn't keen about having the powers.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be Spider-Man. And it's the death of Peter Parker that kind of inspires him to be Spider-Man and to drive him in some way. So
I hope they don't do a death of Peter Parker though.
I'd rather they don't have to kill him.
Either have him retire or just don't be rid of him at all. We've only had one Spider-Man game with him.
Yeah.
And I thought he was excellent in this game. So I want him to stick around.
Yeah, so do I. I just hope they give Miles some kind of contrasting feature. Because at the moment he's pretty much just Black Peter Parker.
Yeah.
He lost a parental figure. Or his literal parent,
and he's got a motherly figure to
and he's got a kind heart, and he does what's right. That's very similar to Peter, and I just want there to be some, and I'm sure they will, because like you could
the writing in this game.
I just really appreciate with the writing that they do things that good movies do. Characters have good solid motivations. The story kind of all loops round into explaining things, that because through the whole game you're like, is that explained? Is that bit going to be explained, or is this like dumb comic shit and you just don't need to think about it? But I kept saying no, it all comes together.
One thing that I found, I'm not sure if it did get explained.
What was that?
So Dr. Octopus comes up and he's working with Mr. Negative. Was Doc
Ock's working for Mr. Negative?
Or working with Mr. Negative?
Yeah.
Was that going on from the start, or?
I don't think it was going on from the start, but once Doc Ock becomes Doc Ock, there's some implied he's off being a villain kind of stuff. And in that lab where you can listen to the audio tapes, there's a Mr. Negative one where he does mention something about, it alludes to the way that he's known him before, because he was there at the origin.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I like that he's
contact him.
Yeah. I like that he's kind of somewhat responsible and ties into the whole thing. I just like how all the characters, all the story, all the major players at least. Like you got Electro and all that shit. They're somewhat more removed, but they're more just players. as opposed
they're
to
just doing what they're told.
Yeah, and they're not treated as anything more than that. They're just sort of fun distractions.
Yeah.
In terms of the story.
Speaking of those guys, boss fights,
Mm-hmm.
I found ranged from like really good to just
Yeah.
The shock, is he called the Shocker?
Oh yeah, I forgot he was even in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought his boss fight was all right.
Yeah, I'd say that's like the best example of just like a fine, solid, okay boss fight.
I thought the Kingpin boss fight right at the beginning, didn't think that was very good.
We need to talk about the beginning as well.
Yeah,
once we finish the story. Yeah.
I thought what was it? Scorpion and Rhino. Didn't really like that one.
Yeah, I didn't really like that one.
But the Falcon and Electro one, excellent.
Yeah, I thought that was
really good.
Yeah, very good boss
fight.
The
Doc Ock one, excellent.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Negative one, pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And
not the one in the train though.
No, the one in the train.
That's
pretty
the
lame.
worst boss fight in the game.
I don't know if it's even a boss fight. It turns into
sort
like
of
Guitar
is,
Hero
sort of
for
isn't.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
But not many games do boss fights well.
No.
I can't think of any at the moment beyond Dark Souls. So for a superhero game especially, to nail more than one boss fight,
yeah,
incredible.
Well, notice 2 of those 3 good ones you just mentioned, you're in the air. Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That seems to be the key. When you're grounded, like the Rhino one, it's way less fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What was it you said we needed to go back to?
Is there anything else in the story, really? I liked...
There's a few nitpicky things I had while going through, but...
Yeah.
After the ending, it's just like...
The ending really ties it all together.
It ties it together.
And it's so rare, because normally the end is where games especially drop the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's like the opposite of Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, the game is the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this game, I was enjoying it the whole time, and then the ending elevated it.
Yeah.
And it's the literal opposite with Arkham Asylum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ending of Arkham Asylum is so video gamey, stupid nonsense bad.
But I mean, to be fair, that game came out... Well, it must have been 10 years ago.
2008, I want to say.
10 years ago?
Yeah, so 10 years ago.
Fucking hell.
Not to like knock that game, because at the time that game was still impressive, but...
That game is still...
That kind of ending would be unacceptable for a game of this caliber now, so it's really good to see it's not just like a fine ending, it's a really solid, earned ending. But yeah, I think we've covered most of the story now and what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. I think it's just a good Spider-Man story. Probably one of my favorite ones.
I like how it feels. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's got its own spin. I like the whole modernized sort of take on it.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man on his phone and shit.
Yeah, it differentiates itself from the MCU enough, while doing what the MCU does well in its own way. Its own like interpretations of the villains, its own interpretations of these characters, taking all the best elements from all the Spider-Man movies, all the comic lines, and meshing them all together for to have its own voice. So I guess if we move on to the actual mechanics of the gameplay now, one of the worst things about the game is the intro. Not narratively. I love the way it immediately just goes into it.
I think the intro to the intro where you're swinging, fine.
Really
but
good, yeah.
It's when it goes into combat.
Yeah, once you go into that Fisk Tower,
it's just too much at once.
Way too much. Because I remember just thinking, I'm shit at games. Probably just me. It's probably why I'm having trouble. But you, especially, are like very good at this kind of Arkham beat 'em up style of game.
After that intro, it goes back a little bit in the difficulty, and I was doing really well.
Yeah. There's a weird difficulty spike at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where they treat you as if you'd already played a game like this before or something.
Not a game like this, but this game.
Yeah. It's almost like there was a game before that they expected you to have played.
Yeah.
And the way, even down to the way they introduced new enemy types. They introduced like 5 or 6 enemy types. Just like just in the intro.
Like, because at the start I remember thinking like, what do I even do against these guys?
Yeah.
It was 3 seconds
they're
ago.
piling on all of the movement, all the inputs for getting around, the traversal. Then on top of that, it's the fighting, and then on top of that, it's the enemy types and all the combos, and it's just like, so by the end of it, when I was describing to you the way I played the game, I played it wrong. I played this game wrong because at the intro, it didn't teach me how to play it properly.
Yeah.
So I just assumed, because this is the style of game kind of like Arkham, I tried to play it like Arkham for the whole game. And as a result, I found things that shouldn't have been as hard as I found them. Whereas for you, because I'd already played it and I was sat there as well, reading the tips while you were trying to play it, picking things up, and it was like, somehow I didn't realize that you're supposed to play this game more in the air. You're supposed to be moving. You're not a tank like Batman. You when you get trapped or gunned down, you take so much damage that you're just...
If you're hit by more than one person, you've got one hit left in you.
Yeah. So, and I like that. It does differentiate it from Batman, but they don't do a very good job of teaching you why it's different from Batman. Why you should play it differently, how you should play it differently. It's too much to begin with.
Yeah.
And they teach you it's weird because they like pick and choose when they want to do that kind of overwhelming compared to slowly introducing mechanics kind of gameplay thing. Because with all the side quest shit, they don't just say, here's every side quest. They slowly introduce it. They show...
Really slowly. I mean, in the last act, they're still introducing new ones. Whereas they couldn't pace the combat.
Yeah, it's a really weird decision. I like it seems like, I don't know, what I reckon it was because this is the end of one of Spider-Man's eras. That's the beginning of the game. And he's taking out this really... he's like his biggest villain, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess because they knew what was coming in the rest of the game, they didn't want to make that feel like it wasn't a big deal. Whereas at the beginning of Arkham Asylum, it's just like...
It's very downplayed. You're just walking, no combat.
Yeah, and then Joker manages to escape, and you just think it's not a big deal. So you fight three thugs.
Yeah.
Compared to Spider-Man, where it's like 20 dudes, half of them have machine guns.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, that's probably my biggest knock against a lot of the gameplay stuff, like the action fighting stuff.
Yeah. It's a problem games have because there is an element of you have to learn it. Whereas a movie, you can start with the stakes.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like they prioritized the narrative above the gameplay thing, which I don't know if that's a very good choice.
In terms of narrative, it definitely works. In terms of gameplay, it leads to early on frustration. Because if I'd have just played that intro and then given you what I was expecting the rest of the game was going to be like, I would have said, not great.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very strange. You shouldn't feel that at the start of a game.
You were much better at the combat than I ever was. I noticed you had some frustrations with it. Just speaking about the action, kind of punching melee combat.
It's because the game, you're not meant to be free-flowing all the time. That's the reason you can press down on the D-pad when you have your juice and it heals you. You're meant to take damage. But I don't like that. Because I like the Batman thing where it's designed, you're meant to avoid damage at all costs, and in one fight, you get no health back.
It keeps it like really focused in Batman when you know I can go into a fight and I can perfectly deal with every enemy, not take one bit of damage, and come out with it with a nice combo and a nice bit of XP, because I was able to master this game's systems as opposed to...
Yeah, it's a tricky thing there, because...
You can't just copy it, though, is the thing.
No,
because then it would just be an Arkham clone.
At the same time, I found, like, Arkham Knight, I could breeze through that game from when I first picked it up, because I knew the controls. I basically never died. I'm not sure if I ever died in that game, other than stealth parts, which, in terms of difficulty, are well designed. Or better design. But it feels like no matter how much I perfect this combat, there's certain things that it's beyond me. When a dude just is blasting at me with a machine gun, and then right after I dodge, another dude is trying to punch me, and then half a second later, another dude is trying to punch me. There needs to be a thing, like in Arkham, where if one dude is punching you, another one can't. Because with the mechanics...
They almost like take turns in Arkham, don't they?
Yeah. But with the mechanics given to you in Spider-Man, you can't avoid it in the same way. And when you do a dodge, it doesn't negate all attacks during the dodge. You have to dodge at the right time, which makes sense, but in terms of gameplay, it's frustrating.
Yeah. And the gadgets are a sore spot for me. I think
the gadgets are really fun to use.
Yeah,
when
they're
you get
amazing.
Them right, but they don't give you a way to use them efficiently in combat.
There's no like shortcut.
No,
like there is in the
There's
Arkham
only
games.
a shortcut for the one that you have equipped, which is just tapping R1.
Yeah.
So to change gadget, you have to slow the game down, move the stick to the one that you want, let go, and then you can use it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the worst stuff about the punching part of the game, the melee part.
Yeah.
Just a bit overwhelming at times.
It's overwhelming and it feels a bit imprecise.
And you have so many options as well, like so many, which is a positive and a negative in a number of different ways. I guess stealth we have to talk about.
Stealth is atrocious. It's strange because if they relied on it as much as the Arkham games do, this game would be dog shit.
Yeah, it would like really hurt the game.
Yeah, big time. But it's almost voluntary. There's only a select few parts where it's like if you get spotted,
you fail.
Mission fail. But they make those parts so... Well, I mean, all the stealth is way too easy.
Well, yeah, because you resign yourself, you hold yourself back based on your expectations of what stealth games are, thinking, oh, I can't do that. But once you learn that you can completely abuse the stealth systems, like when I was watching you do it, you can just press square, just...
It's triangle, I think, because that's...
Triangle, sorry.
From anywhere in a stealth section, you can look at a dude, press triangle, and knock him out. And if you click him right stick first, it tells you nobody's going to see you do this. And so you can just hit triangle on them. And even then, there's a slight amount of leeway when someone does notice you before they attack you.
Yeah.
So you can just mash that triangle button in certain scenarios and take out everyone. And it's like, what's even the point of that being an aspect of the game?
And when they discover that people have started vanishing, they don't go, oh, let's look up in the rafters. He could be anywhere. Yeah. Like in the first Arkham game did. Because that makes sense. That's like the natural thought process.
Yeah, in Arkham, they notice people hanging from gargoyles. What do? They shoot the gargoyles. So there's none left. You can't use that anymore. Whereas in this game, you can go on a lamppost, zip a dude up. They don't even notice the dude is zipped there because they're not programmed to. And then you can zip to another lamppost, zip them up.
You're not restricted to how many times you can wear people to walls.
A lot of people in games media were complimenting it for the options and stealth. But what's the point of doing any of those if you can press one button against all of them in the same way? Yeah. It's this thing in games, you can give all the options in the world, but players are going to choose the easiest one. Yeah. If there is one that is better than the others, that's what they're going to do.
And half the time, I was actually, like I had the fight in my head with, I could do this stealthy, but it's quite boring. Or I could just trigger a fight, like a melee brawl, and just do it that way, because at least then there'd be some challenge to it.
It's way more engaging. And there is a bit of challenge to it.
And the game also kind of knows it. We didn't even mention the like puzzle aspects with the BioShock puzzle and the like lines one.
They're not even worth mentioning, really.
That's the thing, which has me conflicted, because it's like on one hand they're so harmless and inoffensive and easy.
I was fine with them. They
I thought they were okay.
Like offend me like the stealth does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Talking about it like this makes it sound like I've got a real thing against the game. But I don't.
That's why we started with the positive stuff first. Yeah. You have to mention it though, because everyone's just praising this stealth as if it's fine. When I'm not that into any of these stealth games.
Well, Batman is what got me into stealth games, and this game clearly takes a few things from Batman.
But it completely misunderstands what made even Arkham Asylum's stealth work.
Well, the whole point of that system was the progression. And as the dudes get more on edge, that you're taken out one by one, they notice everything that you do and how you do it, and they adapt. And
there's just none of that here.
It's either you're spotted or you're not.
But I don't like the way the game is self-aware about it.
Yeah.
Like you can skip those puzzles. Those parts where you're forced to play as Miles and Mary Jane. They're so easy to the point where the game's like, we're not going to challenge you because we know this will be extra frustrating.
Yeah.
And when you're on a design dock and you're at that point where it's like, no, I've got to make that easier. Got to make it less challenging because no one would want to do it. That's where I question.
Why is it in the game?
Yeah, why is it in the game? Yeah, the stealth isn't great.
Not by any means.
No.
It might be some of the worst stealth I can think of. Because...
Well, compare it to like Metal Gear, even Far Cry.
They have an understanding of... You have to limit the player in some way. I mean, it's just how you can move around as well in Spider-Man. Because you're so versatile.
So able,
you just go anywhere you want.
It's just part of, making that character... They have to come up with a way to somehow restrict the character that can do nearly anything physically. Whereas Batman doesn't have that issue. He can't just climb any wall. He has to use gadgets to get around because he's just a person with like a suit.
And he's ripped as fuck.
Yeah. He's just a martial artist, basically, who can fling around. Whereas Spider-Man's actually superpowered. And we were saying this even before the game came out, that stealth doesn't really align with Spider-Man that much. They're tailing people, makes sense. Sneakily, like, climbing around things, following people, investigating.
One sort of stealthy part I did like was you're going up Norman's tower. And you're Spider-Man slinking around, and it's
because you don't have to kill anyone really.
Yeah, and flashlights are going around. Even then, I abused it because, like, at certain parts, you just know they don't have the time to see you, so you just sprint up at 1,000,000 miles per hour like Spider-Man can.
Yeah. So there's definitely that's if I had to pinpoint one major thing they had to improve for a sequel, it would be that aspect of it, because that's really a third of the game. In terms of the structure of...
It should be a third of the game in terms of the structure, but it's not. Because
they've made it an element of the game, and that element is not good.
Yeah. I remember watching it in E3 demos and stuff, and just being like...
I thought, I mean, this looks really easy, but hopefully in the game, when you actually play it, you can kind of figure out what's going on, but it never does get to that challenging component. They never start seeing you, they never start, like... shocking random bits of the metal that you're on, or doing anything proactive. They just constantly stay as stupid AI enemies. I guess the final thing I have to kind of bring up, if you don't, is we've constantly been referencing Arkham, and I want to talk about, is this game too similar to the Arkham games at points? Because we forgot to mention it in the story, but Mr. Negative and Scorpion, and there are a couple of other sequences, have these set pieces which are so similar to the Scarecrow set pieces from the Arkham games, the Ra's al Ghul sections, even Batman Arkham Origins, the one with the Bane kind of stealth section being mimicked with the Rhino thing. How egregious do you think it gets at points?
I could never confidently say that those parts are directly ripped from Arkham.
Yeah, it's that fine line.
Yeah, it's a fine line between influence and theft.
Yeah. See, I think the Mr. Negative ones is the best example of taking it and making its own thing. But the biggest problem I have is the Scorpion one, because this is a character who's clearly just kind of been thrown in, not only because he's part of the Sinister Six, but because we can do Arkham did with that character and try and make it more interesting by this whole hallucination mechanic.
Which doesn't work as well as Scarecrow. The
No.
thing is, what Rocksteady always did really well was merging those bits with game. It's not just there to be like a trippy, whoa, look at this. It
was a surprise.
It's storytelling and a surprise. Like, it doesn't do the Batman origin story, but you see it.
Yeah.
And it's so clever the way it does that. Whereas in Spider-Man, it's just like, it purely exists for gameplay.
Out of all the Arkham games, I don't think any of them have particularly strong narratives, but they are so ingenious and clever with the way they take advantage of the fact that it's a video game, and they use the video game aspect to tell stories. Think about an Arkham Knight where you have like Joker sort of inside your head, and that changes the actual world. I remember like seeing signs that were like changed to Joker themed, and there are parts where when you're just traversing through the level, he will like try and scare you and stuff like that kind of stuff. And the whole end of Arkham Knight,
they recorded extra dialogue for when you do side quests and he's still in your head.
Yeah,
and it's just
that
like,
attention to detail.
It's lovely.
And hopefully they'll learn a better way with the sequels.
Yeah, I hope it can become more of its own thing.
Yeah, and hopefully it will, because they've got feedback, a lot of feedback of what people like, what people don't like. So hopefully they lean more into. We mentioned the traversal. How about if it had some kind of Sunset Overdrive level of
like a combo
system in the movement, and that kind of thought process, because you got to make your strengths better and kind of either make your weaknesses into strengths or kind of figure out what things need to be left behind.
Yeah, I'm sure they could leave behind the stealth and have something in place of it, but I mean, it's their job to figure out what that is. It's not
Spider-Man on a motorbike.
Yeah, have spider vehicles, spider quad bike, spider plane. Just fuck the traversal.
Anything else?
Got
a couple more minutes on the.
I just want to say again, like, we've been negative quite.
We've had a lot to say about it,
but,
which is a positive. In the
overall, I'd almost say I love this game.
This is where it comes down to. I love the narrative. I love elements of the combat. I love the traversal. Don't like the stealth.
Yeah.
So that overall, that's way more positives than negatives.
Absolutely. That is this game. It's more positive than negative, but the negatives are there.
Mr.
Negative, you ruined it all.
Yeah, man. Solid game in the end. I can't wait to see what they do next with the series. I'm actually hyped for it.
Yeah, 5 out of 10. Stealth sucks. Sorry, guys.
I feel... Oh, and the music.
Music, very good.
Music is surprisingly well done. Spider-Man has a theme. Doc Ock has a theme. There's a lot of different leitmotifs and shit like that used. Really appreciate it. Awesome shit right there. That's what I want to see the Marvel movies do.
Yeah.
They do a better job than the MCU does.
The only thing I wish Spider-Man had, this game had, with the soundtrack was more like little little Spider-Man.
Yeah. The good use of vocals though, I noticed. Now and again. Very Danny Elfman, Spider-Man original trilogy stuff. My voice is starting to hurt now, so anything else?
I don't think so. Can you just edit so I web out of here?
Thanks for watching, everyone. Jim's gone. See you on the next
Angry Joe Show.
Well, it looks like you're hosting.
Being such a creep.
'Cause I'm a creep.
I don't know what he's trying to do.
He doesn't even know.
I can feel his legs are in just the most uncomfortable position. One's wedged like down the side, that's why he keeps adjusting.